Talk more about this is Rabbi Yaakov Menken. He is the executive vice president of the Coalition for Jewish Values, as well as an advisory board member for the U.S. Religious Liberty Commission. Rabbi, always great to see you. So tell us a little bit more about this report and some of the major findings here.
Well, it's an absolutely critical report because the administration was taking a very serious look at the way that there wasn't just threats to religious liberty out in the street, but it was being conscienced and advanced by universities, by corporations, and even, sadly, state and local governments, and even the federal government under the previous administration. So there was a lot to look at, a lot to dive into, and the report itself is well over 100 pages long and quite comprehensive.
Yeah, and I know it was based on 7 hearings that the commission held over the past year involving religious liberty and healthcare, public education, and the military, just to name a few. It also looked at anti-Semitism and security. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that? I mean, it's really hard for a lot of us to forget what was happening on college campuses that made so many Jewish students feel unwelcome and unsafe.
Well, obviously, that was a huge problem and a huge part of it. I mean, there you are, you're showing the Palestinian flag, which is actually just the flag of the Arab revolt. It's, redoing an old and false narrative about whether the Jews belong in Judea and using that for political purposes and to suppress religious freedom. And they were allowing, campus administrators were allowing this to go on across the country. And one of the most salient conclusions of the commission was that there needs to be an expedited timeline for investigation of these things. What's happened is the Department of Justice was being a place where accusations of anti-Semitism and bias against Christians went to die. By the time there was any sort of conclusion, the students involved had graduated. There was no further opportunity upon it. Not the students, the administration might have changed at the university, whatever was going on. Now there's going to be an opportunity, hopefully, if these are actually implemented, to have a real timeline where things have to be investigated and moved forward, and they can't allow this sort of nonsense that you're displaying on screen here to continue.
Yeah, and speaking of schools, I know there was also a case of a teacher who's Catholic who was told to remove the crucifix from her desk, and if she didn't do so, she was risking losing her job. It's just one of, many stories where the separation between church and state was not only misapplied, but also weaponized against Americans.
I very much agree with you. I think they're discussing a case up in Massachusetts, in Boston or near Boston, if I'm not mistaken, where, yes, a teacher was told, even though she displayed it at her own desk beside her in the obvious area that all teachers used for personal space, as every classroom had with its teacher in the front, she uniquely was told she has to remove it because it's an endorsement of Christianity. Obviously, that was completely not the case. The Founding Fathers were deeply religious. There's never been a conflict between a person being religious and applying his religious beliefs to public policy in a prudent and nonpartisan or non-denominational way, and that's not a conflict between church and state. That's the way it ought to be.
Yeah. Rabbi Menken, before I let you go, I want to talk about something else, the primaries, and also the rise of Democrat socialists, in particular in New York, where the socialist candidates backed by Mayor Mondami swept the races. And apparently it wasn't their messaging really on affordability that won them their votes, but rather their anti-Israel rhetoric. Rabbi Menken, what does that signal to you, and how concerning is it, especially in a city like New York with the largest Jewish population outside of Israel?
It could hardly be less concerning. I mean, see what's happening. They are, this is a cadre of people who are against democracy. They are against productive workplace. They are against businesses succeeding. If a business succeeds, they have to take away all their money, unless it's George Soros. Get it? It's like, and of course, this doesn't sell in Kansas or Oklahoma. This only sells in New York City, where they're motivated by jealousy. They see around them successful communities, successful lives, and they say, that's got to be wrong. There's got to be something wrong with that. We've got to tear that down. And of course, they start with the Jews. This complete nonsense narrative on Palestine, a country that has never existed, a complete fiction created by Yasser Arafat. He was very open about creating. And it's now this myth is accepted as truth, not only on the campus, but in the left wing of the Democratic Party. And sadly, we've been seeing a rise on the right also. Thankfully, President Trump and others have spoken out against it. But to the point where Carlson no longer feels a member of the Republican Party, that's a good sign. Zoran Mamdani should be told he's no longer a member of the Democratic Party. Good luck getting that to happen.
Well, Rabbi Menken, always great to be with you. Thank you so much for coming on and weighing in. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.